a wealthy young man, led the woman he loved into one of the roughest neighborhoods in the city. The room he showed her had a leaking roof, a broken window, and barely enough space for two people to stand comfortably. But the room was not truly his home. It was part of a secret he had carefully protected for months. He wanted to know whether she loved the man he appeared to be, or the fortune attached to his real name. Yet the closer she came to passing his test, the more frightened he became of losing her when the truth finally surfaced. And when that truth was exposed in front of everyone, her reaction was not what he expected. Settle in, because this is a story about love, pride, deception, and the price of testing a sincere heart. The evening breeze from the coast moved gently through Tema as Kweku Agiman walked beside Efua Badu. They had left the office almost an hour earlier, but instead of taking their usual route towards the main station, Kweku had led her through a maze of narrow streets near the old waterfront. Children chased a flat football between wooden kiosks. Women packed away bowls of smoked fish. Somewhere in the distance, a radio played high-life music through a tired speaker. The deeper they walked, the more the road changed. The pavement disappeared. Open gutters ran beside the path. Several houses had walls darkened by years of rain, and patched sheets of metal covered their roofs. Efua slowed down. "Kweku, where exactly are we going?" He gave a nervous smile without looking at her. "We're almost there." That answer only made her more curious. They had been seeing each other for nearly 4 months. She knew the meals he liked, the jokes that made him laugh, and the way he rubbed his thumb against his wrist whenever he was worried. But there was one part of his life he always avoided discussing: his home. Whenever she asked where he lived, he became playful. Sometimes he said, "Not far." Other times, he claimed his room was too untidy for visitors. Once, he told her that the landlord was repairing the place. Efua had stopped pressing him, but she never stopped wondering. Now she understood that he had not been avoiding the question because of untidiness. He had been ashamed. Kweku's steps became heavier as they approached a low building at the end of the lane. He had negotiated contracts worth millions of cedis without his voice shaking. He had sat across from aggressive investors and refused to surrender a single percentage of a deal. Yet walking beside Efua towards that building frightened him more than any boardroom ever had. This was not a negotiation he could control. He had brought 2 women to this same neighborhood before meeting her. The first had stood outside the room, stared at the cracked walls, and suddenly remembered an urgent family problem. She stopped answering his calls 2 days later. The second entered, but her entire attitude changed before she left. Her warm messages became short replies. Then the replies stopped completely. Both women had spoken beautifully about loyalty. Neither had remained long enough to prove it. Kweku had told himself he would not be surprised again. But Efua was different, and that was exactly why he was afraid. If she walked away, he knew the pain would not feel like the others. He stopped in front of a faded blue door. The single-story structure looked as though it had been forgotten by the rest of the city. A long crack ran from the window to the ground. One side of the roof was held down with stones, and a torn piece of tarpaulin covered a section where the metal sheets had rusted through. A bucket sat beneath the gutter, even though it had not rained that day. Efua stared at the building and then at Kweku. He reached into his pocket and took out a small key. "This is it," he said. "This is what? My place." For several seconds, she said nothing. Kweku unlocked the door and pushed it open. The lower hinge complained loudly, forcing him to lift the door slightly before it would move. He stepped aside. "You can come in." The room was smaller than Efua expected. A tin mattress rested on a wooden pallet. Beside it stood a plastic stool and a narrow table with one uneven leg. A single bulb hung from a wire in the ceiling. There was no television, no wardrobe, and no fan. A faded curtain divided the sleeping area from a corner containing 2 cooking pots and a small charcoal stove. Brown watermarks spread across the ceiling. An old newspaper had been pressed into a gap in the window frame to keep insects out. Efua entered slowly. She did not cover her nose. She did not laugh. She simply looked around, taking in every detail. Kweku remained near the doorway, studying her face. Surprise appeared first, then concern. Finally, a quiet sadness he had not prepared for. "So this is where you come after work every night?" she asked. He nodded. "And you sleep here?" "Yes." Efua touched the edge of the table. It rocked under her hand. "Kweku, why didn't you tell me?" He had practiced his answer many times, but it sounded weak now that she was standing in front of him. "When I moved to Tema, things didn't go the way I expected," he said. "A friend helped me find this room. I have been trying to save enough money to move somewhere better." It was not a complete lie. Years earlier, a family employee had helped secure the room. But Kweku had never needed to save for rent. Efua turned towards him. "Were you afraid I would be embarrassed by you?" He looked down. "I didn't know what you would think." "That is not an answer." Kweku exhaled slowly. "I was afraid that once you saw this place, you would stop seeing me the same way." Her expression tightened, not with disgust, but disappointment. "You should have allowed me to decide that for myself." "I know." "No, I don't think you do." Her voice remained gentle, but every word landed clearly. When you hide your difficult moments from someone who cares about you, you don't protect the relationship. You keep that person outside it. Kweku looked at her. She was upset because he had not trusted her, not because the room was poor. The difference stunned him. Efua walked to the window and pulled away the newspaper. Warm air entered through the gap. "This place becomes very hot at night, doesn't it?" "Sometimes." "Sometimes." She looked up at the ceiling. "There is not even a fan." "I manage." She shook her head. "You always say that. You manage. You are fine. Nothing worries you. Meanwhile, you are living under a roof that looks ready to surrender." A reluctant laugh escaped him. Efua smiled briefly, then became serious again. "I am not laughing at you, Kweku." "I know." "Good." Silence settled between them. Kweku waited for the polite excuse. He expected her to check the time, mention her mother, or say she needed to reach home before dark. Instead, Efua picked up the plastic stool, examined one of its cracked legs, and placed it more firmly against the wall. "Do you have water?" she asked. "Yes, there is some in the yellow container outside." "And the bathroom?" "Behind the building." She gave him a long look. "You're giving me more reasons to be angry with you." His stomach tightened. "Efua." "Not because you are poor," she said. "Because you have been facing all this alone, while behaving as if everything is perfect." Kweku did not know what to say. He had expected rejection, not compassion. "I'll buy us something to drink," he said at last. "There is a shop close by." Efua sat on the stool. "Bring malt for me." "You're staying?" "Where am I going?" The question sounded so ordinary that it nearly broke through every wall he had built around himself. Kweku nodded quickly and stepped outside before the emotion on his face betrayed him. He walked to the kiosk at the corner and bought 2 bottles of malt, roasted groundnuts, and a small packet of biscuits. As the shopkeeper counted his change, Kweku found himself smiling. Perhaps he had finally been wrong about someone. Perhaps Efua was exactly who she appeared to be. He returned less than 10 minutes later, pushed open the blue door, and froze. The stool was empty. The room was silent. "Efua!" No answer. The smile disappeared from his face. He placed the drinks on the table and checked outside the doorway. She was not in the lane. A familiar heaviness entered his chest. Of course, he thought. She had only waited until he was gone because she did not want to reject him to his face. He gave a bitter laugh and looked down at the 2 bottles. At least you were polite about it, he whispered. Then he heard her voice from behind the building. Kweku, is this tap supposed to work? He turned so quickly that his shoulder struck the door frame. Efua stood near a concrete basin at the back, twisting a rusted tap that produced nothing but a weak cough. She held a broom in one hand. Kweku stared at her. Why are you looking at me like that? She asked. I thought you had left. Left where? I came inside, and you were gone. Efua pointed at the tall weeds near the wall. I came to see the bathroom, and then I found this broom. Have you noticed that a whole forest is growing behind your room? For a moment, Kweku could only blink. Then relief rushed through him so strongly that he laughed. Efua folded her arms. You truly believed I would disappear because of one bad room? Kweku's smile faded. It has happened before. Her expression softened. He had revealed more than he intended. With other women? She asked. He nodded. Efua studied him carefully. Beneath his calmness, she could now see the old wound he usually kept hidden. How many people have made you feel as if you are only worthy when life is going well? She asked. Kweku looked away. Enough. She stepped closer. Well, I'm not those people. You don't have to prove anything. I am not proving anything. I am telling you. She placed the broom against the wall and took his hand. I care about the person who walks me to the station even when his own bus has already arrived. I care about the man who brings food for the security guard when everyone else forgets him. I care about the person who listens when I speak instead of waiting for his turn to talk. Kweku lifted his eyes to hers. None of those things depends on the size of this room, she continued. So stop deciding what I am capable of feeling. His voice became quiet. What exactly are you feeling? Efua hesitated for one heartbeat. Then she answered, I love you. The sounds of the neighborhood seemed to move farther away. Kweku had heard those words before, but never while standing beside a broken tap behind the rented room. There were no expensive clothes, no family name, and no promise of comfort surrounding him. Only Efua, looking directly at him. He opened his mouth, but emotion tightened his throat. Efua smiled. You don't need to force an answer. I'm not forcing it. Then say it when you are ready. Kweku drew her into his arms. For the first time since beginning his secret life, the room behind him did not feel like part of an experiment. It felt like the place where someone had chosen him, and that made the truth, waiting beneath everything, far more dangerous. They went back into the room and opened the drinks. Efua sat on the mattress this time and insisted that Kweku take the stool because it looked less stable under her. They shared the groundnuts and talked until the light outside turned orange. At one point, rain began tapping against the metal roof. Kweku quickly moved the bucket beneath the first leak. Then another drop landed near the table. Efua lifted the bowl beside the charcoal stove and placed it under the second one. So this is your evening exercise, she teased. Running around to catch the rain? You become very fast after a few storms. I can see that. They laughed together. The room was uncomfortable, but Efua did not behave as though she was suffering through it. She told him about growing up in a crowded family house where 6 cousins shared one bedroom. She described the fights over who had used the last water and how her grandmother woke everybody before sunrise by singing hymns at full volume. Kweku listened, amused. Before leaving, she stood in the doorway and pointed towards the window. On Saturday, we are buying proper mesh for that gap. We. Yes, we. And you will cut those weeds. You have already become my landlord. No, a landlord would increase your rent. I am trying to keep mosquitoes from carrying you away. Kweku walked her to the main road. At the station, the queue for the trotro stretched beneath a row of street lights. Efua joined the line, then turned back towards him. "Thank you for finally showing me." He lowered his eyes. "Thank you for not changing." "I did change," she said. His face tightened. Efua smiled. "Now I am more worried about you than before." The trotro pulled forward, and the mate shouted the destination from the open door. Efua climbed in and found a seat by the window. "Call me when you get back," she said. "I will." As the vehicle moved away, Kweku remained beside the road until her face disappeared behind the other passengers. Only then did he return to the blue door. That night, he lay on the pallet, listening to rain strike the roof. Efua's words replayed in his mind. "I love you." He should have felt nothing except happiness. Instead, guilt sat beside it. Because Kweku Agiman was not a struggling clerk. He was the only son of Samuel Agiman, founder and chairman of Agiman Coastal Group, one of Ghana's fastest-growing transport and warehousing companies. The salary Kweku received at the Tema branch was less than the amount he sometimes spent on a single business dinner. The small room was not his real home. His real bedroom was inside a gated house in East Legon, with glass walls, air conditioning, and a balcony overlooking a landscaped garden. He owned 3 cars, although none of the workers at the branch knew that. Whenever he traveled to meet his father, a driver collected him 2 streets away from the neighborhood. At the office, he used only his first and middle names. His employment records had been arranged through a trusted director who knew why he was there. The plan had begun after the collapse of his engagement to a woman named Vanessa. Kweku had believed Vanessa loved him. Then he discovered messages in which she told a friend that marriage to him was the safest investment she would ever make. She had also shared private information about his family business while trying to impress people. After that betrayal, every smile began to look suspicious. Kweku's father had advised him to step away from the world, where everyone recognized his surname. "Live simply for a while," Samuel had said, "not to punish women, but to remember who you are without all this." Kweku had taken the advice further than his father intended. He rented the room, joined the Tema branch as a junior records clerk, and decided that the next woman who entered his life would meet him without wealth. At first, it felt like protection. Now it felt like deception. Kweku sat up and reached for his phone. He called his father. Samuel answered after the 3rd ring. "Kweku, is everything all right?" "Father, I think I have created a problem." That sentence usually means the problem was created some time ago. Despite himself, Kweku smiled. "I met someone." Samuel became quiet. "Tell me." "Her name is Efua. We work in the same branch. Tonight I brought her to the room. And she stayed." Samuel waited. Kweku rubbed his forehead. "She said she loves me." "That should make you happy." "It does. That is why I am afraid." Samuel's voice softened. "Does she know who you are?" "No." "Then you have not finished the test. You have only finished the easy part." Kweku frowned. "The easy part? You wanted to know whether she could accept a poor man. Now you must discover whether she can forgive a dishonest one." The words stung because they were true. "I did not lie about how I feel." "No, but you lied about the life surrounding those feelings." Kweku looked at the bucket collecting rainwater. "What should I do?" "Tell her before somebody else does." "I need time." "Time is useful only when it leads to courage," Samuel replied. "Do not use it to decorate your fear." After the call ended, Kweku remained awake for a long time. He promised himself he would tell Efua soon. But the next morning, she arrived with window mesh, 2 nails, a roll of tape, and a bright piece of fabric she said would make a better curtain. Kweku tried to refuse. Efua ignored him. Together they repaired the window badly but proudly. Kweku cut the weeds while Efua swept the room and complained about his complete lack of cleaning standards. By the afternoon, the place looked different. Not luxurious, not even comfortable, but cared for. Kweku watched Efua tie the new curtain and felt his confession retreat further into his chest. He did not want to destroy the happiness on her face. So he delayed. One day became a week. 1 week became 3. At the office, their relationship became difficult to hide. They did not hold hands in front of their colleagues or spend the entire day whispering to one another. Yet people noticed the small things. Efua always saved him a seat during lunch. Kweku knew when she wanted tea before she asked. They sometimes arrived together after meeting at the station, and when the office closed, he carried her bag despite her complaints that she could manage it herself. Most of their colleagues found the relationship harmless. Some even teased Efua about the quiet clerk who followed her like a personal bodyguard. But one man watched them with growing resentment. His name was Daniel Bani, the branch operations supervisor. Daniel had spent 12 years at the company and treated that length of service as if it gave him ownership over everyone beneath him. Junior employees lowered their voices when he passed. Drivers avoided bringing him problems unless they had already prepared someone else to blame. Months before Kweku arrived, Daniel had pursued Efua. He sent flowers to her desk, offered to drive her home, and repeatedly suggested that being close to a senior manager would open doors for her career. Efua rejected him without humiliating him. Daniel accepted her answer in public. In private, his pride never recovered. Seeing her choose an ordinary records clerk felt like a personal insult. At first, Daniel's behavior towards Kweku was subtle. He returned correctly completed files and demanded that they be arranged again. He scheduled Kweku's lunch break at inconvenient times. He sent him to search for documents that did not exist, then accused him of being slow. Kweku endured it quietly. He had entered the branch to experience the company from the bottom, and Daniel was giving him a painful education in how some managers abused small amounts of power. Kweku documented every incident in a private notebook. He did not call the head office. He wanted to see whether the branch manager would notice. More importantly, he did not want to expose himself before speaking to Efua. But Daniel mistook restraint for weakness. One Tuesday afternoon, he dropped a folder on Kweku's desk. "These stock records are wrong." Kweku examined the pages. The figures matched the warehouse report. "Are you arguing with me?" "I am explaining where the numbers came from." Daniel leaned closer. "Your job is not to explain. Your job is to correct what I tell you to correct. If I change them without a supporting report, the records will become false." Several employees looked up. Daniel noticed their attention and lowered his voice. "You are becoming too confident because one woman smiles at you." Kweku's jaw tightened. "Please keep Efua out of this." Daniel smiled. "Or what?" Kweku said nothing. Daniel picked up the folder and struck it against his chest. "Finish it before you leave." He walked away, believing he had won. Across the room, Efua had seen everything. The following day, Daniel found a new way to humiliate him. A regional client was visiting the branch, and the reception area had been prepared with bottled water and snacks. Minutes before the meeting, Daniel deliberately knocked a cup of coffee from the table. It splashed across the floor near Kweku's shoes. Daniel looked down at the mess. "Clean that." Kweku glanced towards the cleaner, who was already approaching with a mop. "She has it, sir." "I did not speak to her. I spoke to you." The cleaner stopped awkwardly. Kweku looked at Daniel. "My monthly report is due in 10 minutes. Daniel smiled. "Then you should clean quickly." Everyone in the reception area became quiet. Kweku understood what Daniel wanted. This was not about coffee. He wanted Efua and the other workers to watch Kweku kneel before him. Kweku took a slow breath. I will not do that. Daniel's smile disappeared. What did you say? The cleaner is already here, and I have assigned work to complete. There is no reason for me to leave it. Daniel stepped close enough for Kweku to smell the coffee on his breath. You think you are too important to clean a floor? No, I think you are using your position to embarrass me. A few workers exchanged nervous looks. Daniel grabbed Kweku by the upper arm. You have forgotten your place. Kweku pulled his arm free. Do not touch me. Daniel shoved him. Kweku stumbled backwards into a chair, but he did not retaliate. Before Daniel could move again, Efua came between them. That is enough! Her voice cut through the reception area. Daniel stared at her. Move away. No, this does not concern you. It concerns every person who works here, she replied. You cannot put your hands on employees because they refuse to participate in your humiliation. Daniel's face darkened. Be careful, Efua. You should be the one who is careful. There are cameras in this room, and there are witnesses. For the first time, Daniel looked towards the ceiling. He released a breath through his nose and straightened his jacket. This branch is becoming undisciplined, he muttered. Then he walked away. Efua turned to Kweku. Are you hurt? I'm fine. You hit the chair. It was only my leg. The cleaner quietly began mopping the spilled coffee while the other employees returned to their work. Efua lowered her voice. You keep allowing him to push you until one day he will go too far. Kweku looked at her with a mixture of gratitude and shame. She had defended him while believing he had no influence, no powerful surname, and no one important who would listen. If she had known the truth, Daniel would not have frightened her. But she had spoken anyway. That courage made Kweku love her more. It also made his silence feel uglier. That evening, he left work before her and went directly to the room. He sat on the pallet with his private notebook open beside him. Page after page contained dates, instructions, altered reports, and examples of Daniel's behavior. Kweku could end the problem with one phone call. Instead, he was hiding in a room that was not his, protecting a secret from the woman who had just protected him publicly. A knock sounded at the door. Kweku! He recognized Efua's voice. He opened the door and found her holding a covered food container. I brought waki, she said. You left without eating. Efua entered and placed the food on the table. The new curtain moved gently in the evening air. She had also brought a small rechargeable lamp because the power in the area had gone off twice that week. Kweku watched her switch it on. The soft light filled the room. You didn't have to come, he said. I know. You should be resting. So should you. She sat beside him on the pallet and examined his leg. A dark bruise had started to form near his knee. This is what you call fine. It looks worse than it feels. Efua gave him the kind of stare that ended arguments. Daniel is angry because I rejected him, she said. I think that is part of why he targets you. Kweku's eyes narrowed. Did he ever threaten you? Not directly. He just believes every kind action is a transaction. Because he offered me lifts and bought flowers I did not request, he thinks I owe him affection. You should report him. I will if he crosses the line again. He already has. Efua noticed the anger in Kweku's voice. Look at you, she said softly. You will not defend yourself, but you are ready to fight for me. That is different. It is not. They ate from the same container. For several minutes, neither spoke. Kweku knew the moment had arrived. No office noise, no colleague, and no excuse stood between him and the truth. Efua, can I ask you something? She wiped her fingers and looked at him. Ask. What would you do if someone you loved had hidden an important part of his life? Her expression changed. What kind of part? Something that would affect the way you see him. Efua studied his face. Are you trying to tell me something? His heart began pounding. He could say it now. My surname is Agiman. The chairman is my father. This room is not my home. The words rose inside him, but fear stopped them at his lips. I was thinking about what you said the first day, he replied. About trust. Efua was not convinced, but she answered, I would be hurt if the secret made our relationship feel false. What if the person had a reason? A reason can explain a lie, she said. It does not erase it. Kweku lowered his eyes. Efua touched his hand. But I would listen before making a decision. People hide things when they are afraid. I would want to understand the fear. Her answer gave him hope. It also made him more ashamed that he still could not confess. After she left, Kweku called his father again. Samuel listened as he described Daniel's behavior and Efua's intervention. This supervisor placed his hands on you, Samuel asked. Yes. And you did nothing. I am documenting the situation. You are my son, not an undercover investigator. I am also an employee in that branch. If I reveal myself only because I was mistreated, what happens to everyone Daniel has treated this way for years? Samuel became silent. Kweku continued. I want the review to expose the system that allowed him to behave like this, not simply punish him for touching the chairman's son. That is a better answer than I expected, Samuel admitted. I will arrange an unannounced branch audit. Kweku sat upright. When? Soon. Father, I need to tell Efua first. Then do it tomorrow. Kweku looked around the little room. I tried tonight. No, Samuel said. You prepared to try. That is not the same thing. Kweku closed his eyes. I will tell her tomorrow. Make certain you do. Once the audit begins, the truth will no longer belong to you alone. Kweku barely slept. By morning, he had decided exactly what to say. At the office, Efua noticed his serious expression before he reached his desk. You look as if you are going to court. I need to speak with you during lunch. About your mysterious question. Yes. Efua searched his face. Should I be worried? I hope not. The morning moved painfully slowly. At 11:30, Daniel called Kweku into his office and handed him an invoice from a fuel supplier. Enter this payment into the system. Kweku read the document twice. The amount was far higher than the quantity delivered. The delivery note does not support this figure. Daniel leaned back. The remaining documents will come later. Then the payment should wait. Process it. I cannot approve an unsupported invoice. Daniel's eyes hardened. You are a clerk. Nobody asked you to approve anything. My login records who entered it. Daniel stood. Are you accusing me of something? I am asking for the correct documents. Daniel snatched the invoice from his hand. Get out. Kweku left, but he sensed the danger had shifted. Daniel was no longer trying only to embarrass him. He wanted him connected to a false payment. At lunch, Kweku met Efua beneath an almond tree behind the office. She crossed her arms. All right, tell me. Kweku took a breath. My full name is... The office door opened behind them. Kweku! Daniel shouted. Every head in the yard turned. Daniel marched towards them, holding the invoice and a printed transaction sheet. You entered this payment incorrectly. Kweku frowned. I did not enter it at all. Daniel thrust the page towards him. Your staff number is on the transaction. Kweku examined it. Someone had used his credentials. This is not mine. Daniel raised his voice so the nearby workers could hear. First, you become disrespectful. Now company money is disappearing through your account. Efua stepped forward. You told him to process that invoice this morning. Daniel glared at her. Stay out of an investigation. Kweku remained calm. Check the login time and the computer address. I was in the records room when this transaction was created. You expect us to believe you? The system will prove it. Daniel seized the front of Kweku's shirt. You are a thief pretending to be intelligent. Efua grabbed Daniel's wrist. Release him now. Daniel pushed her hand away. Several workers moved closer, uncertain whether to intervene. Then the sound of vehicles entering the compound made everyone turn. 2 black SUVs and a silver saloon passed through the gate. The branch manager rushed from his office, adjusting his tie. Doors opened. Security officers stepped out first. Then Samuel Agiman emerged from the second vehicle. The chairman had arrived without warning. The atmosphere changed immediately. Senior workers straightened their clothes. The branch manager hurried forward to welcome Samuel Agiman, but the chairman's attention was already fixed on Daniel's hand gripping Kweku's shirt. What is happening here? Samuel asked. Daniel released Kweku and turned. Recognition drained the color from his face. Sir, we discovered an irregular payment connected to this employee. Samuel looked at Kweku's crumpled shirt. Is this how the company investigates financial concerns? He resisted, sir. Samuel's expression hardened. Then he looked at Kweku. My son, are you hurt? The entire yard fell silent. Efua stared at them. Kweku knew there was no way to protect the secret now. I am fine, father. Whispers spread instantly. Daniel's mouth opened, but no words came. Samuel turned back to him. Did you verify the transaction time, the computer used, or the security footage? Not yet, sir. Then you did not investigate. You accused. The chairman ordered the audit team to secure the computers and suspend payment access. Daniel was relieved of his duties pending review. I did not know he was your son, Daniel stammered. That is not a defense, Samuel replied. Every employee deserves dignity, whether he has a powerful father or no one at all. As Daniel was escorted inside, Kweku turned towards Efua. She looked at the vehicles, the security officers, and finally at him. The chairman is your father. Yes. And the room? Kweku lowered his eyes. It is not my real home. Efua stepped backwards as though the words had physically struck her. You watched me repair that window. I know. You let me worry about you sleeping under a leaking roof. I wanted to tell you. You had weeks. Kweku reached for her hand, but she pulled away. I needed to know whether someone could love me without my family's money, he said. So you turned my heart into an examination. He had no answer. Tears filled her eyes. I am not leaving because you are wealthy. I am leaving because you controlled the truth and called it love. Efua, please. I need space. She walked out of the compound without looking back. The audit later proved that Daniel had used an administrator account to attach Kweku's staff number to the false payment. Investigators uncovered several inflated invoices linked to businesses owned by Daniel's relatives. He was dismissed and reported to the authorities. The branch manager was disciplined for ignoring complaints and weak controls. Kweku's private notebook helped other employees speak about Daniel's intimidation, but none of it felt like victory. Efua stopped answering his calls and traveled to stay with her aunt in Cape Coast. Kweku returned to his family home in East Legon. The mansion had cool rooms, running water, and every comfort he had hidden from her, yet it felt emptier than the rented room. One evening, Samuel sat beside him on the terrace. She said I took away her choice, Kweku said. She is right, his father answered. Kweku looked at him. I encouraged you to live without the family name, Samuel continued. I did not encourage you to build a relationship on a false life. Pain can explain fear, but it cannot excuse manipulation. What if she never forgives me? Then you will accept the consequence and become better because of it. In Cape Coast, Efua replayed every memory. At first, anger colored everything. She wondered whether his kindness, His struggles and even his love had been performed. Then she remembered moments Kweku never expected her to see. Sharing lunch with a driver whose allowance was delayed, helping a cleaner carry supplies and refusing to process a dishonest invoice even when he believed he had no protection. His wealth had been hidden. His character had not. That truth did not erase the deception, but it made her willing to listen one day. When Efua returned to Tema, she learned the audit team had recommended her for a compliance role at the Accra headquarters. Her reports had repeatedly identified stock errors Daniel ignored. She asked whether Kweku had arranged it. The manager showed her the written recommendation, dated before the chairman knew her name. Efua accepted the opportunity because she had earned it. During her first week at headquarters, Samuel asked to see her. He apologized for helping create the thinking behind Kweku's experiment. He did not defend his son or ask her to forgive him. Before she left, he placed the key on the desk. "The old room?" Efua asked. Samuel nodded. "Kweku still pays the rent. Every Saturday he helps the landlord repair the building. He says real families live there, while he had the privilege of treating their hardship like a costume." Efua stared at the key. "He does not know I told you," Samuel added. "You owe him nothing. I only believe you deserve the complete truth this time." That Saturday, Efua returned to the neighborhood. The blue door stood open. New metal sheets covered part of the roof. The weeds were gone, and two men were repairing the outside wall. Kweku stood beside the window in a dusty shirt. When he saw her, he lowered the hammer in his hand. "I did not know you were coming. Neither did I until this morning." She noticed the working tap. "Why are you doing all this?" "Because I used this place as a prop," he replied. "Then I drove back to comfort, while real people remained here. I cannot undo that, but I can't stop pretending it taught me nothing." Efua studied him in silence. Kweku stepped forward, but kept a respectful distance. "I am sorry for lying. I am sorry for letting you worry about problems I could solve. Most of all, I am sorry for believing my past gave me permission to measure your heart." His voice became quieter. "You were right. I took away your choice." Efua looked down. "The poor clerk I loved was not real. He was part of me," Kweku said. "But I presented him dishonestly. I understand why that matters." "You hurt me." "I know. And I will never agree to another test." "You will never face one. No disguises, fake homes, or hidden surnames." "I promise." Efua held out her hand. "We cannot return to how things were." Kweku nodded. "But we can begin again," she continued. "Slowly." He took her hand carefully. "Slowly," he agreed. Beginning again was not simple. Efua did not immediately return to their old routines. She asked questions she had once been too trusting to ask, and Kweku answered them without hiding uncomfortable details. He introduced her properly to his family. He showed her the home where he had grown up, the office where he worked with his father, and the business responsibilities he had concealed. At first, the scale of his real life made Efua uneasy. Staff opened doors for him. Drivers waited for instructions. People changed their tone when he entered a room. But Kweku never pressured her to fit into that world. He continued working with the audit team to improve conditions at the Tema branch. Anonymous reporting channels were created, payment approvals were strengthened, and supervisors received new training on workplace conduct. On Saturdays, he still visited the Blue Room. Efua sometimes joined him. Together with the landlord and local residents, they repaired the shared bathroom, installed proper outdoor lighting, and replaced the most damaged parts of the roof. The room that began as a lie slowly became the place where they rebuilt trust, honestly. Months passed. Efua grew confident in her new compliance role and became known for refusing to ignore small irregularities simply because powerful people found them inconvenient. Kweku respected her work enough not to interfere with it. When she disagreed with a decision involving his department, She said so openly. Samuel often laughed that his son had finally met someone who was not impressed by the Agyeman surname. One evening, nearly a year after the day of the reveal, Kweku asked Efua to accompany him to the old neighborhood. She expected another repair project. Instead, she found the compound decorated with simple lanterns. The landlord's family, several neighbors, and some of their former colleagues were waiting quietly outside. The blue door had been repainted, but Kweku had kept the original color. "What is all this?" Efua asked. Kweku led her into the room. The pallet and broken stool were gone. The space had been converted into a small reading room for children in the neighborhood. Books filled shelves along the repaired wall, and the ceiling fan turned above them. Efua looked around in disbelief. "You did this." "We did," Kweku said. "You were the first person who entered this room and saw more than shame." He took both her hands. "I once brought you here because I wanted proof that you could stay when I appeared to have nothing. I was so focused on protecting myself that I did not understand love is not something you trap and examine." Ifua's eyes began to shine. "You taught me that trust is not proven by creating hardship. It is built by telling the truth, especially when the truth makes you vulnerable." Kweku lowered himself onto one knee. The neighbors outside began whispering excitedly. He opened a small ring box. "Efua Badu, you loved me before you knew what I owned. Then you challenged me after discovering who I had been. You did not only accept me, you required me to become better." A tear moved down her cheek. "I do not want a woman who simply stands beside my success. I want the woman who can look me in the eye when I am wrong, share my joy when I am right, and build a truthful life with me." He smiled. "Will you marry me?" Efua covered her mouth, laughing through her tears. "Yes," she said, "but only if this is not another test." Everyone outside burst into laughter. Kweku slid the ring onto her finger. "This time, there are no hidden details." She pulled him to his feet and embraced him as the neighbors cheered. Their wedding took place 4 months later in Accra. The ceremony brought together two very different worlds. Business leaders sat beside workers from the Tema branch. Ifua's relatives filled the hall with singing and dancing. The landlord from the Blue Room attended with his family, and children from the new reading center carried flowers down the aisle. Samuel watched his son exchange vows with a smile that held both pride and relief. When it was Efua's turn to speak, she looked directly at Kweku. "I promise to love the man you are, not the image you create when you are afraid," she said. "And I promise to remind you, loudly if necessary, whenever honesty starts losing an argument with pride." The guests laughed. Kweku answered, "I promise never to test a heart that has already shown me the truth. I will trust you with my weakness, not only my strength, and I will choose honesty even when honesty is difficult." They exchanged rings as the hall erupted in applause. Years later, people still told the story of the wealthy heir who pretended to be poor to find true love. But Kweku told it differently. He said he did not discover whether Efua was worthy of him. He discovered whether he was brave enough to be honest with her. The money had never been the greatest danger to their relationship. Fear was. Efua's love survived the poverty he displayed, but their future only became possible after Kweku stopped hiding behind deception and accepted responsibility for the pain he caused. And the small blue room that once represented a lie became a place where children gathered every afternoon to read, learn, and dream of a better life. My wonderful viewers, what lesson did you take from this story? Was Kweku justified in hiding his identity after being betrayed, or did he go too far by testing Efua without her knowledge? And would you have forgiven him after discovering the truth? Share your opinion in the comments because I would love to know what you think. Remember, genuine love is not measured by wealth, poverty, or grand promises. It grows through character, respect, and honesty. If you enjoyed this African story, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you do not miss the next powerful story. Thank you for watching.